Ms. Figueroa, we're not here to retry the case, but I do feel like I have to talk a little bit more about it.
Okay.
Because it really doesn't make sense. So you do recall many details of the night of this offense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we read your statement to the police. You gave them a lot of details regarding the entire events before, during, and after. So it's a little concerning to me that you would recall the three of you attacking this man and going to the pharmacy, the different time frames where you were, having a knife. At one point, you even said that you gave the knife to one of your co-defendants to use. And then you were able to leave the scene, bandage up one of your co-defendants' arms, hide the knife. So it's a little concerning that you can recall all of those details for the police, but not recall the actual stabbing. And your co-defendants in their statements said that as you were all leaving, walking away from the scene, you told them that you stabbed him 5 times. Not once, 5 times. How do you explain all that?
I do remember reading that, but I don't remember ever saying any of that. And I'm not going against anything that you're saying or you've read. And when the officers asked me, I did cooperate with them and I did tell them the knife was in the dresser. I had a knife. I didn't have blood on me. I told them everything I could possibly remember. And I just felt like I didn't have to lie. I didn't think the victim was that hurt.
We are about to watch the Connecticut parole hearing of a woman who stabbed a man just walking down the sidewalk, walking home from the bar all the way back in 2006. Now, this case is interesting because she was 17. She was walking with 2 boys, but one 13, one a little bit older. And there's a lot of conflict or argument about what happened, including what happened to her just 2 nights before that might have put her in a different kind of state of mind. Now, I will go through the details of this in the unpacking, including reading to you some of her prison letters that she had wrote immediately after this entire incident, as well as a detailed report written by a professor about this crime in the unpacking. Now, she was sentenced to 32 years, and her full term date is 2038. Now, because she was 17 at the time that this crime happened, she is allowed to have this hearing. It's a special hearing, again, because she was under the age of 18. So there's a lot riding on this case. Now, she reads a long opening statement. There's quite a lot of questions. I know many of you are very interested in hearing all of it, but if you want to fast forward to the crux of the interview, it starts at about the 58-minute mark. I'll put a link to that timestamp in the description below. Now, with that, let's jump in.
This 1584 is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Elsie Figueroa, who was serving 32 years for murder, 1 year executed, suspended after 30 days, and 1 day conditional discharge for assault on public safety, and 10 days for criminal mischief 4. Her total effective sentence is 32 years, 40 days, and 1 day conditional discharge. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows she has completed administrative segregation, target group, voices, anger management, alternatives to violence, basic, advanced, and training for the trainer, smart recovery, TREM, Start Now modules 1 through 4, self-esteem and conflict resolution, healthy relationships, coping with emotions, healing trauma, safe passage, seeking safety through. She has received her high school diploma. She has taken business education, basic skills math, business Microsoft Word, computer concepts, hospitality operations technology, culinary arts, and she is Serve Safe certified. Using the Women's Risk Need Assessment, the offender's overall score falls within the moderate range of risk for recidivism. Ms. Figueroa, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Good morning. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to be considered for parole. Please know that I am not only grateful, but I am also humbled by the opportunity to appear before you today. Before I speak about who I am or what I've taken from my prison experience, please allow me to address the people to whom something is owed, Mr. Sawicki's loved ones. I am Elsie Figueroa. The first time you saw me, I was 17 years old. Today, I am 35 years old. I wish for both our sakes that we could have met anywhere else than in a courtroom back in 2016. And under any other circumstance than for my role in taking your son's life. Please know that it is extremely difficult for me to express within my heart. 19 years have passed, but even with the passage of time, I am still unable to express an apology that reflects how deeply sorry I am for the crime I've committed on January 25th, 2006, that resulted in the death of your sons, brother, uncle, father, and friend. Because that is who Mr. Sawicki was to you and to so many. The seriousness of my action nor the depth of your loss can be measured in sorries. I'm sorry is insufficient, maybe even insulting. I'm sorry isn't a big enough word to touch your grief. I wish I could turn back time, undo that night, anything to have spared your loss. The pain, the suffering that I have caused. That night started off as a simple trip to Walgreens to pick up a prescription I was given after having been assaulted a few days before. Still traumatized and guarded, I had with me a pocket knife that a family friend had given me, with the instructions never to leave the house without it. I wish to God I had not had the knife with me that night. And for those who love him, I am so very sorry, and I will carry this for the rest of my life. I was born in Puerto Rico. I lived in Puerto Rico with both my parents. My parents decided to move to Connecticut after losing sister Gloria to a medical condition. I was one of 10 kids. I came from a mother who didn't work or speak English. My dad left my mother to be with another woman. My mom responded to this betrayal and abandonment by taking pills to commit suicide. I was 7 or 8. I remember seeing my mom on the couch, passed out and foaming out the mouth. The medics were called and she was taken to the hospital. This was the first time I remember seeing someone I loved and cared for almost gone. After my mom's suicide attempt, life changed for the worse. No structure, no discipline, no supervision. We would go to school when we were forced to. Either we didn't have the clothes needed for school or no one to get us up and ready to go to school. Eventually, this school called DCF. And since then, DCF was a part of my life for many more years to come. The older I got, the more I've seen. Police raids, violence, different faces in and out of the home. Every day something new. DCF felt it would be best if me and my younger siblings, Jose, Joshua, and Eric, moved to my Pleasant projects with my dad. I thought that dad would protect us and we would be safe. Instead, I witnessed more and more violence. Gun violence, drugs, drug addicts, and a constant parade of strangers in and out of the house, even sexual abuse. The person I looked up to the most and felt would make things better was the main person causing harm, our father. I became bitter and angry and even scared to be at the house. I became disrespectful. DCF felt things were getting worse and placed me at Lake Grove in Durham. This is where I met Miss Vonda Bilal. She was a staff at a residential. She was the one person I felt safe with, and I felt she listened to me and cared about me. She will hold me accountable when I needed to be, and she has always supported me. She visited me weekly and has been a great mentor to me. She was one of the reasons why I became the person I am today. I was 17 years old at the time, and I couldn't understand or accept DCS help. Now I know all along they were just trying to help me. My mother wasn't capable of taking care of us or being a parent, have structure or discipline us. She became more of a friend and brushed things under the rug because it was safe and more comfortable for her. She numbed herself by self-medicating, and eventually she handed me a pain pill. It was supposed to be for migraines, but from then on, I do them with family. On January 25th, 2006, 3 weeks after my 17th birthday, I'll never forget that day. I had to go to Walgreens to pick up a prescription for the assault that happened a few days before. 2 of my neighbors, my co-defendants, came with me, so I wasn't alone that night. We get to Walgreens to pick up the prescription. I take some then. We leave to go back home. Mr. Sawicki was heading our direction. They bump into each other and they start going back and forth. One of my co-defendants hit him and he hits me thinking I hit him. I hit him back. He pushes me onto the road. Somehow he falls next to me. I do not remember ever stabbing Mr. Sawicki. It was like an out-of-body experience. We get up, he goes home, and we head home. I did not know he was hurt. If I did, I would have gotten him help. My intentions were never, ever to hurt anyone. Coming to York was scary. I felt like my life was over. I would die here. The guilt, the sadness, the fear took over my body. It became so difficult for me to communicate this. I didn't have the family support I needed and wanted during that time. I was surrounded by strangers who constantly judged me and talked about me and my decisions. I became bitter and angry and ashamed of the way I've handled things in the past. I was so young and immature, but now I am older. I've taken so many classes and groups, and I have learned so many new and healthy coping skills. I once couldn't communicate, set boundaries, or walk away. Have patience or surround myself with positive role models. Today, I am proud to say I have learned that. I've learned how to avoid altercations, stay away from people who are constantly in drama or in problems. I've set boundaries and even walked away from individuals who are not healthy for me. After being classified to administrative segregation from 2008 to 2013, I was put in chronic discipline unit in 2015 for multiple disciplinary reports. I spent 4 months in there on the tier alone, the only inmate in chronic. but I am so grateful for that experience. I was forced to face my fears and reality. It was one of the hardest things I've had to do, but the best. After completing the program, I was sent to Safe Passage, one of the mental health programs available to us. They would do groups multiple times a week and one-on-one therapy. I worked with social worker Jill Sandora, who has been trying to help me since 2006. I finally accepted the help. I also got back into school and completed my GED, culinary degree in hospitality. I am currently taking a business class. I also took healthy relationship groups, which taught me how to love myself, communicate properly, and in a healthy way. I also learned how to set boundaries. I took anger management, which taught me how to know my triggers and how to deal with them without using violence. Voices taught me sympathy and empathy and to understand the victim's perspective. I also completed Alternative to Violence 2 times and even became a facilitator. Due to COVID, Alternative to Violence isn't available to us anymore. In 2017, I was asked to work in the medical unit with the new intakes and hospice patients, working as a janitor, assistant, a companion for the dying and the detoxing, and an interpreter. I was responsible to the captain, the counselor, and the nurses. I've learned so many new coping skills. I enhanced my communication skills and increased my patience and empathy. I worked in medical for almost 6 years. The job meant everything to me. It wasn't just a job to me. I loved it. I felt like I was giving back, making a difference. I'm in here for murder. I felt like taking care of the hospice inmates, the new intakes, the sick and the detoxing people. I was slowly giving back, making a difference in little ways. I loved being able to feel like I was a part of something, like they cared about my opinion. I helped the nurses, the counselors, and so many girls. It was a huge responsibility, but I got satisfaction out of it. A lot of the girls in here take jobs for the money. I didn't. I loved going in there and going in some of the rooms, and when the girls would see my face, they'll smile. I loved that they depended on me and they confided in me. It was something I can't explain. I loved when the girls would tell me they look forward to seeing me, my presence, my smile, and my kindness to them, especially the newcomers and the ones that were there for the first time. It motivated me to want to do better, to do more. The staff coming to me for my opinion on things. I've earned their respect and their trust. It wasn't just a job, it was a lot more to me. On October 22nd, 2020, I lost my younger brother, Eric, in a motorcycle accident. The pain was very hard to deal with, the worst pain I have ever felt. The loss was a constant reminder of the pain and suffering my actions have caused Mr. Sawicki's loved ones. I now know what it feels like, and I carry that every single day. Not getting closure, not being able to go to his wake or his funeral, it was difficult for me. I lost myself in work. I stayed up all night working, finding anything to do to distract myself. I would paint, I would wax, anything I could do to avoid facing the truth. Social worker Jill Sandora was very helpful. I speak to her every day. She'd give me things to read and help me with my grief, like literature, positive reinforcement, books, things to help me. She'd help me feel better and feel heard. I knew Jill Sandora was retiring and I was anxious. I was happy for her, but I was scared for me. I felt like I felt when I first came in, when I was first incarcerated. I felt safe with Jill. I was comfortable opening up to her. I felt like she cared and she would do anything she would to help me. I shut down and instead of reaching out to others, I allowed my emotions to get the best of me. And I became weak. And after years with no discipline reports, I got into an argument with someone. She got too close to me and I pushed her. I received a ticket for this a week before Jill retired. I didn't get to say goodbye or good luck. And I lost the one thing that made me feel like I was making a difference and giving back, the job in medical. I was put back on the compound with no school, no work, nothing. I lost so much. I now recognize I handled things wrong and not healthy at all. And I am so ashamed and embarrassed. I do take full responsibility. I realized I needed some work done and I signed up for school in anger management to learn new coping skills and smart recovery, which talks about mental health issues, maintaining a sober life, and healthy relationships. I'm in NA meetings with Mr. Milton and just started taking people, empowering people. I am taking anything available to me. I am aware that if I am granted parole, it won't be easy. Life is different from 19 years ago, from technology to the cost of living. I'm aware it will be difficult for me to adjust, to find work and learn all these new things, but with the help, I am prepared for any challenges. I am in contact with Willard Clinic Reentry Program. I have met with the case manager, Alexa, and the peer support specialist, Rebecca, and they will guide me in the right direction with benefits, employment, and mental health treatment. Also, Pastor Dana at the New Life Recovery Center has agreed to allow me to volunteer at their drop-in center to help me get comfortable with different people and increase my working skills until I find employment. My sister Antonia Ocasio is willing to sponsor me and support me in any way possible. Also, Jody Davis at Karam Dale Recovery has agreed if needed, I can live in one of their sober home sites. In addition to living there, they also offer case management service and I will be volunteering in their main office. Moving forward, whether incarcerated or in the community, I plan to stay on top of my mental health, do NA meetings, therapy, and use all of my coping skills I've learned now in the community. If overwhelmed in the community, I know I have to ask for help to be successful. I plan to surround myself with healthy, sober people who offer support and want to succeed. I will cooperate with all of the parole conditions. This process has been very difficult. Having to tell my story and talk about so many personal things. When this process first started, I didn't think I could do it. Write this statement and read it out loud. But this process has taught me so much and has helped me heal. I've learned that there are resources in the community and I am not alone. So many great agencies, loved ones, and so many people wanted me to succeed, and it has given me strength and hope. Thank you so much for your attention and time. It is very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you for your statement, Ms. Figueroa. We have confirmed, just for the record, with the Office of Victim Services that there is no input today from the victim's family. Ms. Figueroa, we have extensively, as a panel, reviewed your case. We have information from the time you were a child through your offense, the police reports and court records. In addition, we have records from the Department of Correction, all of your program certificates and performance evaluations, disciplinary reports and such. We have a memorandum from Attorney O'Connor, which includes a lot of the same information, thank you, as well as social worker Cortez. So we're very well versed in your case. We do have some additional questions for you when we're done with our questions. Your attorney and the state's attorney will have the opportunity to speak. Okay,
Okay.
we will begin with my colleague, Ms. Palmieri. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Figueroa, I thought you did a really outstanding job on your opening statement. You addressed a lot of things I think that the panel had hoped you would. You know, we're very concerned, obviously, about the most recent disciplinary reports you've incurred, especially after having completed so many programs. So I specifically appreciate that you addressed what was going on at the time of that most recent one. We have, as the chair said, reviewed your file and what things were like for you growing up, you know, very chaotic. Since you've been incarcerated, you've done a number of programs that seem to have helped you manage life there at the facility. And I think I'm more interested in hearing how you're going to manage on the outside. I heard you say that you didn't recall stabbing the victim. At what point did you come to understand that you were responsible for it and plead guilty?
I know I had a knife with me that night. I just don't remember stabbing the victim, but I do take responsibility for having the knife with me. So I must have stabbed the victim. I just don't remember doing it, but I do take responsibility for having the knife with me and participating in it. I just can't remember doing it.
Why do you think you can't remember doing it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I don't know. But I do.
Okay.
I must have done it because I had a knife.
You understand that there were statements in the police report that have you admitted to two separate individuals to stabbing the victim.
When I first came,
Go ahead.
when I was first incarcerated, I thought I was the only person with the knife, and I thought I did it. So I was trying to take responsibility for it. So I did say I did do it, but I never pictured myself doing it. I never in my head seen myself doing it. Like I never remember seeing blood, or like I've never remember doing it. But I thought I did it, so I was trying to take responsibility for doing it. So I've always said I did do it, because in my head I thought I did it.
Because you were the one with the knife?
Yeah,
Okay. And the knife was given to you by who?
a friend of the family.
Okay. And what was the purpose of him giving you that knife?
For an assault that happened 4 days before that.
Did he give it to you with the intention that you would use it to protect yourself?
He gave it to me because the guy was looking for me. He didn't tell me to use it. He said to just scare the guy off. If I was to ever see the guy, just scare him off.
I did read further into the arrest report that when you were questioned, you went to the police department, answered all their questions. So there is some level of cooperation on your part early on in the investigation. And then you were incarcerated for the offense itself, based seems to be on some of the statements that you were the one with the knife at the time.
Yeah.
I did appreciate in your opening statement also you talking about the harm to the victim.
Yeah.
You know, it's when a family member loses a life, it's hard to believe that the person committing the offense can have any kind of remorse. How would you, and I hear that you are very sorry, that you can't believe you did it, and you tried to understand now through having lost your brother that you do have even a greater appreciation for grief that the family went through. How do you think you have, or what do you think you have done over the years of your incarceration to prove your remorse, to show that you are sorry for what has occurred?
I tried to give back by helping others and help. When I worked in medical, I would help the hospice patients and help the people that need and help the people that can't take care of themselves, the disabled.
Trying to make amends by helping others.
Yeah, like I try to give back every day by helping in little ways, helping the people that can't help themselves and just be a better person every day by giving back and just being better and working on myself and just being kind and helping other people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have done a lot of wonderful programs. A lot of the programs that's for an individual your age going into prison that we would hope you do over a period of time. The parole officer went through all the programs that you've taken and completed, so we won't recite them again. But thinking back over the years, which one or two do you think has had the biggest impact on your future?
Safe Passage, because they've done multiple groups, they've done healthy relationships, anger management, they do one-on-one therapy, they do a little bit of everything.
Right, and part of that Safe Passage, there's other little sub-programs, right? Sisters Standing Strong,
Yeah,
that's a support group, tier meetings, and Start Now.
yeah,
So do you feel like that program specifically kind of has helped you get over some of the troubles that you had early on in
yeah,
your sentence?
yeah.
Did you have a mentor through that program?
I worked with social worker Jill Sandora while I was in that program.
Sometimes we hear about inmates, mentoring other inmates. Was that a case at all for you?
Not while I was in that program, but where I'm at now, I have mentors.
Do you mentor anyone?
I'm currently, the social worker gave me the application to be a mentor, to be a peer mentor now.
The Safe Passage, you did that, looks like back in 2014 is when that all happened. What else have you done? Do you think that it's had an impact on you managing the rest of your throughout your sentence, and which you think you'll be able to utilize when you're back in the community?
I've taken Smart Recovery. I'm currently doing Smart Recovery, which works on like it shows you how to maintain a sober life and having healthy relationships and working on your mental health.
I've heard you mention healthy relationships a few times now. In your opening statement, when you focus in on the programs that you think have been most helpful to you, why do you think you focus in on that? Why is that important?
Because at home, I didn't know how to have healthy relationships. And when I first came in, I didn't know how to have healthy relationships. And taking these groups has taught me how to have healthy relationships and how to communicate properly and set boundaries and love myself and know who's not good for me and who's not healthy for me and who wants good for me and when to walk away from a bad relationship, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or red flags.
How do you manage healthy relationships while you're incarcerated?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did?
While you're incarcerated, how are you able to navigate healthy relationships? So it's a very, there's a lot of women at the facility, in close proximity. How do you manage to have healthy relationships, set those boundaries, stay away from the negative people?
I keep a small circle of friends and I set boundaries and we respect each other, we communicate properly, and we're there for each other when we need each other. It's an equal relationship.
Okay, so it's a give and take.
Yeah, it's
equal partners.
Yeah, we don't get in trouble. We want each other to succeed.
Tell me what's good communication. You mentioned that a couple of times too. What does it mean to you to be able to communicate healthy with somebody?
Listening to each other, not being aggressive, not cursing at each other, respecting each other's opinion, not talking down to each other, and validating each other's opinion.
I mean, those are certainly all characteristics of having good communication with others.
Yeah.
What have you talked also about having taken anger management twice now? And I read somewhere in the documents that you took it again because the group dynamics are always different and you can learn other things. What did you learn about yourself the second time you've taken it?
I've learned what triggers me and when I'm getting angry in my body. So, and how to walk away before I react to something and getting myself in trouble. So instead of reacting to something, walking away and doing something that's gonna calm me down. So using my coping skills.
Okay, so not overreacting, using your coping skills. What are your coping skills?
I like to clean, so that calms me down. So I clean, I journal, I do yoga, I listen to music. If we could walk outside, I go outside for a walk. I go to the gym. Or I'll call my mentor, I talk to my mentor.
Well, like we said earlier, you have done a lot of programs. And most recently you did the Alternatives to Violence program. You must have liked that program if you went on to do the training to be a facilitator.
Yeah,
What did you find most interesting about that program?
they made it fun. They got deep into, they got real personal into, which sometimes getting personal isn't good for people because we don't want to face the truth. So we got personal and we got deep into whatever was bothering us, but they also made it fun. And it was a long, like all weekend program.
Voluntary program?
No, it was mandatory.
Okay. You've also gone on to try and gain some vocational training so that you can take care of yourself when you're back in the community. So you received your hospitality certificate just this year in June, I have. And you have your Safe Serve certificate and you've been taking some business classes.
Yeah.
So what are your plans to use those certificates? How would you like to use them?
Well, I like to, I love to clean, so I would use hospitality outside of here. I would look into where I could use cleaning. I would look into working at a hotel or housekeeping. I would do housekeeping.
Okay. You've been taking some business classes. I was reading that you were taking the business classes and you were struggling with some of the academics of the class. Can you talk to me about how you resolved that so that you could continue?
Well, it's technology and it's new to me because everything is technology is different now. So that's why I'm taking it, because it's teaching me how technology works now and how to open up a banking account and all that stuff. So that's why I'm struggling with it.
Because of the technology?
Yeah, it's different. And
Right, it's all new. You don't have a lot of what we use in the community. You don't have access to a lot of that right now.
yeah.
I guess I'm interested. There's a note that says you were struggling with the program. You were having a hard time with learning some of the skills. what did you do so that you wouldn't fall behind?
I talked to the teacher about it and she'll explain certain things to me. And I would just study a little bit more and read some of the chapters a little bit longer, a little bit more.
So you advocated for yourself, got some extra help.
Yeah,
I zeroed in on that because I think it's important for you, regardless of what happens today, but as you go forward, to be able to advocate for yourself. It seems like that was something you were unable to do as a younger person.
yeah.
Advocate in a positive way for yourself, to get yourself help. Do you see that? Do you find that you're able to do that more regularly now?
Yeah, I'm able to do it now. I wasn't able to do it before, but I'm able to do it now.
So, it's hard to not talk about your disciplinary report because, very often we see individuals for these hearings that have almost no tickets, or they have tickets very early on as they have those growing pains, getting used to being in the facilities, still trying to find their way. But yours have seemed to kind of continue up till, as you described, recently.
Yeah.
There are some breaks in your tickets, some gaps, a couple of years here and there. Why do you think it is difficult for you to settle into the routines at times?
It's not, I can go without catching tickets. I know when I first came in, it was really hard. Because I felt like I was gonna be here forever. And I went, like I was really angry and like lost and scared, and I was feeling all these emotions and I wasn't asking for help. So I was going about it wrong. And then I started working in the medical unit and I felt like I was being productive and I was giving back and I felt really, really good about it. And then I lost that. And then I was going through losing my brother and the social worker, and then I wasn't reaching out again to the people that were there that I should have reached out to. But now I'm doing good again and using my coping skills and journaling and going to groups again, and I'm doing better. So I can go without tickets.
Yes, you can. You have from, like you just described, the time that you were in the medical unit, basically you were ticket free during that time.
Yeah,
Then you had two tickets this year and none last year, and then a few the year before that in 2022. I guess, how are you, over these years, how have you learned to regulate your feelings, your emotions? Because, as I said to you earlier, the tickets when you were, let's say, the majority of them, go up to right around the age of 30 tickets before the age of, 44 tickets before the age of 21. So after age 21, you still have a lot of tickets, but they're slowly winding down. So how have you learned to regulate your feelings, and how do you think you'll be able to do that in the community?
I feel like I do take responsibility for them and I am ashamed of them and the way I've reacted, because I know I could have done better and I do better. In here where you can't do a lot in here. Out there, you could go for a walk, you could go to a meeting every single day, you could go to a group every single day. There's other things you could do out there. In here, you're stuck. But I've learned to journal, stay in the room, listen to music, avoid people, stay to myself, and just stay away from everybody. And that's how I've been managing to just avoid tickets and just try to sign up like to every single group I could possibly sign up to, and just try to stay as busy as possible so that I can feel productive and like I'm doing something with myself and feel good about myself, and not like I'm not doing anything with my time. And out there, I would do the same thing, and I would just continue to do as much as I can so that I can be busy and feel like I'm giving back.
And those are certainly avenues that you can take into the community with you. There, things that you can do, like you said, when you're in the community, you can go for a walk, you can go to a meeting. You said yourself early on that when you first got into prison, you're sentenced, you had this 32-year sentence, and you were hungry and had no hope. How have you maintained some feeling of hopefulness over the years? I mean, there has to be a reason you did all these programs. What have you thought? What makes you feel hopeful about the future?
When I first came in, I didn't have the support that I wanted and needed, and now I do. And I think that's what's giving me hope. And just doing stuff with myself is making me feel good about myself, and that makes me feel good, and it makes my days go by better. And I feel like when I'm doing something, I feel good about myself, and I feel like I'm giving back, and I just feel productive.
What do you think has been your biggest accomplishment over the last almost 20 years?
School and working in medical and keeping a job for that long in school.
When you look to be out in the community, what does that look like for you? What does success in the community look like for you?
Having a stable place, my own place, and a stable job, and working and giving back to the community. And I want to like being a peer mentor, just sharing my story, and I want to make a difference. I want to give back somehow.
Challenge yourself every day. Yeah, I think. Ms. Figueroa, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, so on a daily basis, how do you challenge yourself?
Um, I think I challenge myself by going to groups and participating in groups, and sharing something about me and my story, and doing something that I'm uncomfortable doing. Speaking up.
I think that that is certainly challenging to be able to talk about yourself, to make yourself talk about the things that aren't always very comfortable. You always can learn from that. My last question, do you think you've been rehabilitated?
I believe I have been.
Can you give me 2 reasons why you think that's the case?
I know I'm not the same person I was when I came in. I've learned a lot of skills, coping skills and employment skills. I'm patient, I'm trustworthy, and I'm honest. And I'm more mature. I'm just like a whole different person.
And I know you have a well thought out release plan. Part of it is to live with your sister, and if that doesn't work out, it seems like there's other sober living available to you, and you've already established yourself with Wheeler Clinic in the community. I read that a case manager came to speak with you.
Yeah.
One time, or has been more?
One time, and I speak to them on the phone.
All right, thank you, Ms. Figueroa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Figueroa, we're not here to retry the case, but I do feel like I have to talk a little bit more about it
Okay.
because it really doesn't make sense. So you do recall many details of the night of this offense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we read your statement to the police. You gave them a lot of details regarding the entire events before, during, and after. So it's a little concerning to me that you would recall the 3 of you attacking this man and going to the pharmacy, the different timeframes where you were having a knife. At one point, you even said that you gave the knife to one of your co-defendants to use. And then you were able to leave the scene, bandage up one of your co-defendants' arms, hide the knife. So it's a little concerning that you can recall all of those details for the police, but not recall the actual stabbing. And your co-defendants in their statements said that as you were all leaving, walking away from the scene, you told them that you stabbed him 5 times. Not once, 5 times. How do you explain all that?
I do remember reading that, but I don't remember ever saying any of that. And I'm not going against anything that you're saying or you've read. And when the officers asked me, I did cooperate with them, and I did tell them the knife was in the dresser. I had a knife. I didn't have blood like on me. I told them everything I could possibly remember. And I just felt like I didn't have to lie. I didn't think the victim was that hurt. And if I knew how bad he was hurt, I would have gotten him help. At the time, I thought it was.
I'm going to stop you. I mean, I believe that part of the story, that you didn't think that because we also read that he walked away, right? It wasn't until a little bit after you guys were gone that he actually collapsed from the stab. So I believe that part of your explanation, that you didn't know how badly he was hurt. What I'm having difficulty with is the fact that nobody recalls stabbing the victim.
I gave the officers like 3 different statements because I really wasn't sure what happened. Like, I really didn't know what happened. I really didn't. I
So
didn't
why
know
not say, I don't know?
because I didn't know, and I didn't know who did it. I didn't know. I didn't want anybody to get in trouble. I didn't know if I did it. And if I did do it, I didn't want them to get in trouble. If they did it, I didn't want to get in trouble. So if I did it, I wanted to be responsible for it. And I didn't want somebody else to be in trouble for something that I did do. And if they did it, I didn't want to get in trouble for something that I didn't do. So I didn't know. That's why there were like 3 different statements. But I did admit to having a knife. I did admit to being there. I took responsibility for having a knife. I took responsibility for being there.
You took responsibility for hitting him as well.
Yeah.
You guys were kicking him while he was down. So I think you're missing my point here. My point here is that you remembered a lot of the little details, but now you're telling us you don't remember stabbing him. So do you think you didn't stab him? Somebody else did?
I'm just saying that I don't remember stabbing him. I could have stabbed him. I don't remember kicking him, but we could have. That's what I'm saying. It's been 19 years. I'm not going against anything you're saying and anything they wrote, but it's been 19 years. But I really don't remember ever stabbing him, kicking him, any of that. I really don't.
So when you say it's been 19 years, are you implying that you may have forgotten some details?
Yeah.
What does that mean when you say it's been 19 years?
I'm saying that it's just been so long that, like, I try to remember so much because I do want closure and I want to remember if I did do it, regardless of what, it's always going to stay with me. And I'm sorry, like, I have so much guilt because he died and I was there and I had a knife and I played a part in it. So it's always something that's gonna stay with me, whether I was the one that stabbed him or not.
Yeah.
But
All right.
it's just,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that we're really not gonna get anywhere with this line of questioning. So I'll move on. There's no doubt, there's no disputing your childhood was horrific. It was awful. Many people failed you. And certainly there had to be a lot of trauma and it had to affect you negatively. Do you think that you've properly addressed all of that? I mean, I'm sure it's an ongoing process, but what are your thoughts?
I feel like I've gotten the help now. I feel like I've gotten the treatment I needed during this incarceration. I've gotten treatment. I've done one-on-one therapy. I've taken medication. I do groups and I participate. I'm honest with them. I'm open with them. And I'm open to help.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's also no question you have participated in a lot of programming, more than most. Obviously, you've been incarcerated for 19 years. You've done a lot of work. You do seem to have a little difficulty today expressing yourself. Is that because you're nervous? Is that your normal state?
No, I am a little nervous.
Mm-hmm. Well, as anybody would be, that's understandable. I'm very concerned about your disciplinary reports. In 2022, just 2 years ago, you had an assault and 2 fighting tickets, and just this year, another assault and a fighting ticket. Given the violent nature of your offense, That's very concerning. And 74 tickets total. It's a lot of disciplinary reports. Given all of the programming and coping skills that you've claimed to have learned, it troubles me that you couldn't find alternate ways.
When I first came in, I do admit that I didn't have coping skills. I wasn't using any coping skills. I was reacting, I was impulsive, I was angry. But I know for a fact I'm not that person, and I'm aware that I've gotten a few tickets in the past. And I could have handled them differently, and I'm ashamed of the way I've handled them. I do avoid altercations, and I know how to handle them differently. I have it in me, and if given the chance, I know how to walk away from people. I'm not a troublemaker. I don't get into drama. I don't have problems with inmates. I'm respectful. I stay to myself, and like, that's not who I am. I know it's hard to believe, but that's not really who I am. Like, if I'm granted parole, I want to do better, and like, that's really not who I am.
But you understand, paroling you that's a huge undertaking for us, right? There's a risk there. An innocent man walking on the street lost his life. I mean, it's a big ask. So to be getting, okay, I'll put the fighting tickets aside. We understand prison isn't always a positive environment. Explain to us why the last 2 assault tickets.
One of the assault tickets, I did not hit back. It does say assault, but I didn't hit back. And then another one, I did hit back, but one of the assault tickets, it does say fighting, because it was a altercation. It was a verbal altercation, and the officers couldn't see what happened. So they wrote it as but all the other tickets, I do take responsibility for that. And that's why I say I am ashamed, because I have the coping skills.
So wait, so you're not taking responsibility for the assault tickets, but you are taking responsibility for the fighting tickets? I want to make sure I understood you right.
No, I do take responsibility for all of the tickets. Because I have the coping skills. I know how to walk away, and I know what to do and what
So
not to.
then why didn't you? Then why didn't you?
I just wasn't in the right state of mind. I'm not, I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm sorry. I was weak. It was a weak moment. Like, but I do have it in me, and I'm better. Like, if you guys give me the chance, I promise I will not like let parole down. Like, this environment is full of negative people, negative females. It's just so hard.
Would you be surprised to hear that we see offenders at York every month with 0 disciplinary reports?
I understand that.
Okay. I don't want to take away from all the work you've done, because you certainly have done a lot of work, but what further work do you think you need?
I feel like I just need to continue to do therapy and just keep doing groups and stay in school.
Any specific program you think would be helpful for you?
I've done anger management 2 times since these tickets. After these tickets, I've taken anger management. Every time anger management is available, I take anger management. Every group that is available, I apply for them. I've taken everything I could possibly take, and any group that comes on, I sign up for it.
I think my question was specifically, is there a program you think could benefit you for your future?
I guess anger management.
Okay. So continued anger management? Okay. I appreciate that. Now, you're asking to go stay with your sister. Is your sister still in contact with the rest of your family?
No. She moved out of New Britain. She lives in Bristol, and she doesn't visit them. She'll talk to them once in a while on the phone, but she doesn't she doesn't go stay with them. She doesn't visit them like that.
And she's married? How long has she been married?
Maybe like 10 years.
Okay, so she's not married. Is she married to the father of her children?
No.
Hmm. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Turner, for further questioning at this time. Thank you for speaking with me.
Ms. Figueroa. I'm wondering if you could give me an example of a boundary that you have set with the other women there in the prison.
People that are people that do drugs or are doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing, and I know they're doing it, I don't interact with them. So if I had a friend and then I found out that they were doing stuff that they weren't supposed to be doing, I don't communicate with them anymore. Or
So you must have cut off a lot of people there in the facility. So do you just not interact with them when they're under the influence or at all?
at all. I don't talk to a lot of people in here. I know a lot of people because when I worked in medical, I've met a lot of people through medical, but I don't consider a lot of people friends.
So you were under the influence, you had taken pills at the time of this offense, 3, not sure what they were, pain, Vicodin, 3 Vicodin.
Yeah.
And you've completed tier 2, but we really haven't heard or talked much with you about any kind of relapse prevention. I know you still have people in your life here out in the community who are perhaps still using substances, and you've been setting some boundaries with them. I read about that. You talked about having a healthy, sober network and NA. Can you talk to me about what you understand about your abuse of substances?
I'm sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. What was your question?
I'm interested in hearing from you about what you understand about your abuse of substances when you were in the community.
When I was taking pain pills?
Whatever else you were using.
That's all I was using was pain pills. I don't know how to answer that.
So you and your mother and you and your sister would pop pills.
Yeah,
Why did you take pills?
to numb myself.
So how does NA, participating in meetings, help you?
It just tells you, it gives you, it shows you what to do so that you
How does it
don't,
help you?
it's showing me what, like, to call a sponsor, and what getting high does to you and to your body and to your brain and to your life. And it gives me other ways, it's teaching me other ways so that I don't go back to that. And we're in a circle venting to each other and talking to each other, and it makes you feel better.
Do you work the 12 steps?
Yeah, we have the blue book where we read every week.
Have you, in your journaling, have you worked your way through the 12 steps yet?
Yes, we do it every week with the counselor.
Which step did you find the hardest?
It hasn't really been hard for me.
Do you believe you have an addiction?
I don't think I have an addiction. I think NA is helpful and I should continue to stay in NA when I leave here because it'll be helpful. But I think an addiction is somebody that needs drugs all the time, as soon as they wake up, all day, every day. And
No, I mean, it's somebody who resorts to substances as a way of coping. It's about how you think about your relating to challenges in life, stress, and whether avoidance and, like you're talking about, numbing out is one of those coping. But
well, I think when I was
go ahead.
Well, I think when I was at home, I did probably have an addiction that month that I was doing the pills because I was doing them every single day.
And you increase the amount you were taking too, which,
Yeah.
to get the same effect. That's, your body's acclimating, and, that a craving component kicks in. So I think you need to look at that a little bit more carefully because, you've avoided substances while you've been inside, but it doesn't mean that it isn't, potentially a trap for you. If you think you can recreationally participate, marijuana is legal now in our state. I'm surprised that you would say that the steps hadn't been hard for you, because there is a step about making amends, and I would have thought that taking the life of somebody else would present you with some challenges because you can't contact the victim's family while you're serving this sentence. But so you talked to my colleague about, further work that you could undertake. I'm wondering if you have strategies in mind to avoid getting DRs, you know, I understand the 2022 and the circumstances with your brother and the social worker, but I'm at a loss for understanding, you know, on the cusp of your hearing that that you would have gotten not one but two DRs for violence. You know, I mapped out the DRs that you did have, and there was a majority before 2014 when you first took anger management, but after completing anger management in 2014, you got 6 more DRs. And then you would have gotten a letter about this 1584 in 2016. And that's when you start to see a real decrease in your DR. So I think you started to appreciate that there was, you know, perhaps light at the end of the tunnel with a mechanism for release. Was this, you know, self-sabotage that you got 2 DRs this year? What was going on for you that you weren't using these coping skills to avoid the tickets?
Well, back then I was forced to take those groups and I wasn't really participating or trying to get anything out of it. And then when I did get the letter, I was trying to take things more serious, but I was scared about this parole hearing and parole. So yes, the whole situation was really, really scary to me.
You were having, you know, monthly meetings with your attorneys in preparation, your whole legal team for this hearing, and those monthly meetings became weekly meetings. Did you talk with them about your fears about the DRs that, you know, when you first got the assault DR, you know?
Yeah, and I was doing good and I was trying to do better, but it was just so much change and like reality, and it's my life, and like I want my freedom and I want to be with my family, and but it's still like really, really scary.
But you got a really strong support system. You've got programs that are going to provide you. You told my colleague that you weren't in the right state of mind. You were weak. What this year? What's been going on with your state of mind? How would you describe it?
I meant like working in medical and living in medical and helping the nurses and the captain and the counselors and feeling like I was giving back and feeling responsible, and then having to move out of there and moving on to the compound and not working and not having a job and not having school and being on the compound with the regular inmates and not feeling like I was making a difference or giving back, and all these changes.
Okay, but you went all of 2023 without a DR.
Yeah.
So then these two popping up in 2024, you know, since it is part and parcel of the kind of behavior that led to this crime, right? You were looking for a fight out in the community. At least you told the police officer. You and Eddie were talking about burning down a school and should like to fight. And you talked about just going up to someone to fight and how it would be fun. So, you talked to my colleague, Ms. Palmieri, about the impact on the victim's family. And, you very appropriately apologized here at the beginning of the hearing, for taking the life of their son. And, I'm wondering if you at all appreciate the impact on the community of this crime that you committed. You know, the person killed was Polish, and it appeared to have a big impact on that community, so much so that his parents left the country, went back to Poland. You know, they thought perhaps there was some targeting there. Can you talk about the impact on the community? Is it anything you were aware of?
Yeah. Yeah, I was aware that they left the community, and I felt horrible about it.
Well, there was an attorney who sent a letter to the court. His law firm did a lot of work within the Polish community, and he said in the letter, the fatal stabbing has left this hardworking community of immigrants feeling uneasy and fearful for their safety. That really stood out for me. You know, it's that idea that, you know, the ripple effect of our actions, unprovoked as it was. So you are now 35, correct?
Yeah.
And that's the age the victim was when you and your friends killed him. Have you given any thought to that as you turn 35?
Yeah.
Can you share those thoughts?
Yeah. I feel horrible. I know I can't bring him back, and there's nothing that I could possibly do to make his parents feel better and bring him back. And like, like my intentions were never ever to hurt him, or it was never, that was never supposed to happen. Like I wasn't, my intentions were never ever to go out there and commit a crime. And I know his life was short.
I'm struggling with that statement that there wasn't an intention. Felony murder doesn't require the intentional death. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay,
At this time, the attorney will be afforded the opportunity to make a statement. We will now turn it over to the state's attorney. Do you wish to proceed?
I'm sorry, I missed that last point. Was that directed at myself?
Yes, Attorney
Okay.
Johnson.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, good morning, everyone. As it pertains to Ms. Figueroa, I was given a very lengthy packet of information. I think it might be the same packet that everyone has looked at. I did look that over these past several days, and what stood out to me, I think, probably stood out to everybody else sitting in this room. And I don't take it lightly. Ms. Figueroa, and I say this with all due respect, she never had a shot. She grew up in a family that was what I can only describe as unwilling to understand that when you have a human being in your care, you should treat them as such. The conditions in which she lived in were unacceptable and unimaginable, quite frankly. And she was never given a moral compass. And the result of that is the incident that we have before us that she committed when she was 17. What troubles me, I will tell everyone here, is the lack of taking full responsibility for what she did. I know how difficult it is appearing in front of a parole board such as this, especially for Ms. Figueroa, with her limited educational background, as well as the way that she was brought into this world and brought up, and then put into the Department of Corrections. All of those things. I don't take much stock in her disciplinary history. When she was first brought to the Department of Corrections, I think we all know that that's probably the standard procedure. In terms of when you're ripped out of society and brought to a place where everything that you do is controlled, you're going to rebel. And I think Ms. Figueroa didn't have the ability to not do it. It's the recent instances that are a little concerning to me. And when you indicate that you're terribly sorry, and I don't dispute Mrs. Figueroa's statement that she is terribly sorry for the loss of this gentleman's life. I don't dispute that. What I'm having difficulty, I guess, putting into words, and what is troublesome to me, is trying to figure out how you can be sorry for something that happened, but not be willing to admit your exact implications in that crime. And I don't know whether that was Ms. Figueroa struggling with the right words to indicate to this panel, but that's something that struck me. What also stood out for me from Ms. Figueroa's perspective is all of the programming that she's done and everything that she has done. These past couple disciplinary tickets, it seems as though there's some additional work that needs to be done by Ms. Figueroa. She should be, and I will tell her this, she should be proud of the fact that she's completed everything that she's completed. And she's given herself an opportunity, hopefully somewhere down this road, to be a productive member of society, despite from where she came from. And she should be proud of that. I will tell this panel that the reason why you're not going to hear from the family is because after this incident took place, the family went to Poland. And we've reached out, we've tried to have them. I have numerous contacts in the Polish community. I was born and raised in New Britain. So I understand the level of frustration for the Polish community for this particular offense and where it occurred. So that is the reason why you're not going to hear from them after this took place, and what they witnessed, especially being relatively close to where they lived. They've left. So the level of violence in this particular crime, although the individual did not die right away, there are 5 stab wounds. That knife and those bloody clothes were found when they did search warrants, and they were found in the custody and control of the 3 individuals, and this being one of them that's sitting in front of you. That's not something you easily forget. Maybe something that you place in the side of your mind or in the back of your mind somewhere. I think this was an opportunity that should have been taken to express that to this panel, and I don't believe Ms. Figueroa did. Other than that, I leave the decision obviously to the panel, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
We will now turn it over to the public defender. Do you wish to proceed?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Good morning again, board members, and thanks for this chance to address you. And thank you also for carefully reviewing all the written materials that were submitted on behalf of Ms. Figueroa. I just want to mention briefly, I don't know if that it was clear earlier, regarding the programs that she has taken in the decision information summary. It does list that 2 programs were shown as not completed: social rehab program and the safe passage program. We've talked about safe passage, and I don't think anyone disputes that she's completed that. But she also has completed the social rehab program, and there is a letter in the packet that we submitted from a clinician indicating that she graduated from that. So I think she's completed all 8 of the programs on her OAP. Regarding her childhood and her background, a lot has been written about it and said, and I don't want to repeat anything more about it than I have to at this public hearing. But my observation about it is that if you sat down and made a list of every conceivable challenge or hardship that a child could face growing up, she probably experienced that, from poverty to housing instability, abuse, exposure to violence in the home, exposure to drugs in the home, a learning disability, and really, perhaps the biggest, the absence of any capable, supportive adult to guide her through any of that. And I think that's something that the board has to consider. This was an extremely damaged young woman, a teenager at the time of her crime. And yet, despite that background, there's no evidence of any antisocial behaviors in her past, and no history of any violence towards others prior to this offense. And I would remind the panel to review some of the things in Dr. Lopez's evaluation, which we submitted, because he can explain this in detail much more eloquently than I can. I would also indicate that he did testing to assess her risk for future violence, and across the board, the finding was that the risk is low. I know the board has to consider her circumstances at the time of the crime, and I just want to talk a little bit about that. As she indicated, just 3 days before this offense, she was the victim of a very serious assault in her own home, the one place where everyone should feel safe. And the people that were supposed to protect her clearly did not protect her, including on that night, which had to have been incredibly traumatizing for any young person. And then 3 nights later, she had to go to Walgreens in the late evening to pick up a prescription for Vicodin, which was prescribed as a result of that earlier assault. And to me, that speaks volumes about her circumstances. There was not one adult who offered to go and pick up that prescription for her after the trauma she had just been through. There was not one adult who even said, "Hey, I'll accompany you just to make sure you can get there safely and get back safely." Instead, an adult says to her, here's a knife that you should carry in case you need it, in case you have to protect yourself. And she got no help from the people around her, even in a time of crisis. So she then has to ask 2 younger boys, neighbors, to go with her because she's afraid she's going to see her attacker. And of course, they confront, an altercation develops with the victim, which he participates in and causes his death. And I'm not trying to minimize the seriousness of her crime or deflect blame from her, but I offer this perspective mainly because it's been written that perhaps that these 3 teenagers had a plan to go out and rob somebody that night, or that they had planned even to find somebody they could victimize and beat up just for the thrill of it. And she strongly disputes that. That was not the case at all. This was an unplanned chance encounter, and something happened. Words were exchanged, and a tragedy ensued. And I want the board to consider those circumstances as to how this crime came about. Regarding her inability to remember the actual stabbing, I don't have an explanation for that. She had told us when we talked about it that that part of it, she's just blacked out. I'm not a psychologist, but I don't think it's unreasonable that a person, a traumatic event can just be erased or blacked out from a person's memory, or that they just can't come to grips with it, so they've lost the ability to recall it. As she said, she's read a lot about it in police reports. People have told her what she told the police. She had multiple interviews with the police. At this point, I don't know that she really knows everything that she did or didn't do, but she has never once wavered from accepting responsibility for being there, for having the knife, and for causing Mr. Sawicki's death. I also want to point out that she does have problems expressing herself to this day. In Dr. Lopez's testing, she did score very low on the verbal expression sections of the testing. So that is not her strong suit. She has done her best today, I think, to reflect before answering and express herself as best that she can. But still, that I don't want in any way for the board to think that is a reluctance to answer questions on her part. Regarding the disciplinary reports, yes, there have been a lot. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt that the majority were in the first 5 years when she was 17 to 22. I know that's not uncommon in these hearings for the young offender to continue to act out. And it appears she really was a different person then and was not at all equipped to function in the prison environment when she entered it at age 17. And she was also not yet open to accepting help in those years. But something changed in roughly 2013 to 2016 when she decided that she wanted to do better and that she could do better. And she began to accept the available help and began to embrace the treatment that was available. In other words, she began to mature, and her negative behaviors have reduced significantly since that time, certainly since 2015. I don't remember the percentages, but I think I did the math and it's in my memorandum. She's not perfect. I think we have to remember that, and someone even mentioned it in the questions, that this is a very stressful, triggering environment that she's living in currently. In Dr. Lopez's report, he mentions specifically her trauma history. It can be particularly triggering for a person like Elsie to live in this environment. And he predicts that being removed from this environment will actually improve her mental health symptoms. And again, that's in her report. But since the mid-2010s, she has gone on to complete all her OAP programs and then some. She's consistently participated in either education or treatment activities or vocational activities. And that continues to this day. She likes to stay busy. She's a hard worker, and those are very positive traits, of course, for her going forward. And the alternative to violence program, although she was mandated to take it, which she did, becoming a facilitator and taking additional sessions of that as a facilitator, of course, was voluntary on her part. And I think that really is an example of her maturity in rehabilitation. To come into Department of Corrections as a person who couldn't even really properly communicate with her lawyer at the trial stage, to then become a leader and facilitate a group like that, I think is a great example of what she's capable of and how she's changed. There was a lot of talk about her job on the medical unit. To me, that's another significant accomplishment. My understanding is that there's only one janitor on the unit, and that individual lives on the unit as opposed to in general population. And they're not working just a few hours a week. You have to be available 24/7 with no days off. And someone saw some promise in her and gave her that opportunity because it is a position of trust and an important position. And she accepted that and she excelled there. And she's very proud of that, as she should be. And while she was there, she interacted with individuals that were sick, individuals that were dying. And that's not an easy job, but she thrived there and she really enjoyed giving back to others in that position. And she held that position for 5 years and received outstanding performance evaluations. So I think that shows she has great potential, and that if in the right setting, if given the right chance, she can do very positive things. Right. Her discharge plan, we talked about it. There's letters in the package about that. She has a chance to volunteer. She has housing set up, even housing in a sober house if needed. She plans to re-engage with her therapist, Ms. Pandora, who she worked with here for years and is very comfortable with. And Attorney Watson is right. She does have additional work to do, but I don't see any reason why that can't be done in the community under the strict supervision of parole. She has Wheeler Clinic, can provide case management services. and a number of others, of course, including a longtime mentor who has stayed in touch with her for all these years. And finally, there's, I think, about 18 letters that we submitted on her behalf from people who know her and who have had experiences with her that are all urging the panel to give her this opportunity. So to kind of wrap it up, there's no doubt that this crime was very serious, as all of these 1584 hearings tend to be. A man lost his life, and there has to be accountability for that. This woman has now been held accountable for almost 19 years in prison, which is longer than the time that she had been alive at the time of her crime. And, you know, this is a case where I think the correction system has worked. It took some time, but eventually she got the treatment she needed. She was became open to it. She's done the work, and she's demonstrated substantial rehabilitation. I don't think there's any doubt about that. No, she's not perfect. Yes, she needs more work, but again, I think that can be done in the community with parole supervision in a way that ensures both public safety and her success. So considering all of the information that's available before the panel today, including her young age and the diminished culpability of youth, I submit that she does meet the statutory criteria for parole release, and I would strongly urge this board to grant her that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, the panel will enter into deliberation. It's open, so everyone can listen, of course, and we'll discuss your case, ma'am, and come back to you with our decision. Okay, Ms. Palmieri, we'll begin with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've covered, I think, a lot of ground today. There was a lot of very helpful information submitted with this report. I specifically appreciated all the evaluations that were done, Dr. Lopez, social workers. I thought it was all incredibly helpful. I don't think that we need to rehash the crime. I do retry the case, as the chair had said. You know, Ms. Figueroa was 17 years old when this occurred. She did plead guilty. In reading the file, I did say to myself, we hear a lot of these cases that go to trial at 17 years old. Very often the individual will say, well, I just couldn't see myself taking an offer of that many years, spending that many years. So I do think as in a sense of her acceptance of responsibility for her role in the offense, she did plead guilty, as indicated by all our discussions today. She met with throughout the investigation a few times, provided the information. I don't know what to think about her not being able to remember. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but there is a level of trauma that's involved with what had occurred to her a couple of days before. So for me, I do consider that. I think the fact that, again, that she cooperated, I go back to the fact that she was 17 years old. I think that we all agree that her upbringing was chaotic, dysfunctional, riddled with violence, abuse, substance abuse, people surrounding her that had their own mental health issues. I think her and her siblings were neglected and lived in a housing that was just not stable. Her and her siblings were taken out of the house several times. She kept going back, unable to accept the help outside her family. I do think, and I do believe that Ms. Figueroa is remorseful. I think the age of 35, she can appreciate the harm that she has caused, not only to the victim's family, but to that community. I also did read that letter that Ms. Turner referenced to. And, I think we can all envision the ripple effect through a small community like the Polish community in New Britain, that this has such an impact on, that they don't feel safe. I do get the impression from all the discussions today with Ms. Figueroa that she is ashamed and that she's horrified by her actions and she regrets them. I do think that when we talk about rehabilitation, that she has worked hard to rehabilitate herself. She has, I counted 18 programs, not counting all the sub-programs within some of those programs. She did well. The programs, I made a note to myself as I was reviewing the files. It's not just the number of programs she took, but it is the programs that she took and what programs she took and completed, and why each program was identified for her or that she volunteered for that were necessary for her to address her mental health needs, her substance abuse needs, and frankly, her immaturity, and the trauma that came with her from the community. And she, and her education level. There's all kinds of information throughout the file that, she was truant. She wasn't going to school for a variety of reasons, not just because she was defiant. It had a lot to do with, that she just wasn't encouraged to go to school. So, or, that they were made fun of when they went to school. So, and I know that's kind of a really kind of mild way of putting that, but she also has worked on her education. She participated in programs that make her marketable in the community for employment, that she could support herself. I noted that when the parole officer does their assessments, that identified things for her were education, financial, mental health, and substance abuse, housing. All these have been addressed either through programs or through what we see in her release plan. The assessment also addresses her strengths. So, she is somebody that can continue with her education. She does have some support in the community. And she does, I think, at this point, see the value in herself. She has some self-worth, which, is important to be able to live in the community. And I go back to and advocate herself. I made a note with that business program. It's small, but appreciating that she was falling behind in the class and that she was challenged, yet she, from what I could read in the report, she went, rather than quitting the program, she went and asked for extra help. I think that's indicative of her level of maturity and recognizing where she needs help and she knows how to ask for help. I think the job is another example to hold a job through medical. What we didn't point out today also is the dates that she held that job were through COVID, right? And we talked about that in many, many hearings with individuals who held jobs as cleaners or specifically in the medical units during COVID, because it was a very, very trying time throughout all the facilities. I think it's clear that through that program, she not only had a job, but she gained a lot from that program, that feeling of self-worth, that feeling of being able to give back. And then, she has continually addressed her mental health all throughout the treatment. I think we can all agree that will be an ongoing issue. She will need to be able to recognize the need for that probably for a long time to come, and she will always benefit from that. She has mentors in the community. She already has established counseling in the community. We have a letter from Wheeler Clinic. We have a letter from another reentry program offering support. As I commented earlier in the hearing, she's already met with somebody from Wheeler Clinic. She has a sister in the community that's offering support. If that doesn't work out, she has other housing available to her. I think the fact that she has an opportunity to volunteer will bring back that feeling of self-worth and being productive like she had when she was working in the unit. I think that the release plan also has identified all the services that are necessary for her to live successfully in the community. And I do think that they're plentiful, and that being on parole will provide not only an opportunity for safety to the public, support for her in the community, and an opportunity to help push her forward with the resources that she needs and keep her on the right path. I know we've talked about, and we were all troubled, to say the least, to put it mildly, about the disciplinary reports. I think that being in a facility with mental health issues and concerns always seems to be exasperates the mental health, the disciplinary reports, whether it's emotional outbursts or not being able to get along with somebody else. So I'm not providing an out for them. For me, I'm not going to be overly concerned, because I do think that they are part of her mental health. They are part of her need to regulate her emotions. And all that can be addressed in the community through outpatient services. And there was even an indication that there's a program that provides respite when there's a feeling of being overwhelmed, that's available to her should that comes out. So with all that said, I am in favor of granting parole today.
Thank you, Ms. Palmieri. So I agree with everything that's been said, as far as her upbringing, the offense itself, and the level of remorse, the programming that she's taken, her positive release plan. My concern, I'll keep this brief because I think you've covered a lot. My concern is that she learned all of these new skills through programming, and then she regressed when she was confronted, and she herself says she wasn't in the right state of mind. She was weak, so she wasn't able to pull from the things that she had learned and the support that she had. And my concern is that the same might hold true. She has all these things in place, but if you don't use them in the community, then they're worthless. It's the violent tickets and I understand it happens early on, as the state's attorney pointed out himself. Many of these tickets were early on, but to see, it's not very often in these types of hearings that we see someone do so well and then have very recent violent tickets. So that's what I'm struggling with. If she takes advantage of everything that she's gained and all the supports that she has in place, and can utilize them in times of weakness, then I think she'll be successful. But I just question whether she's there yet. Ms. Turner.
Well, I want to correct myself. In talking with Ms. Figueroa, I indicated she had taken tier 2, and she hasn't. So I think my questioning might have been additionally difficult for her, not having had that program. It was on her, I think it's at 2011 OAP, and then again on a revised 2020. But she hasn't been assessed for that. So I just want the record to reflect that correctly.
Thank you.
We also didn't touch on the fact that since coming into the facility, she's had 3 additional convictions. Obviously, the 2009 and 2010 were early in her incarceration: assault on public safety, for which she got a 30-day sentence, and criminal mischief. In 2010, she got a 10-day sentence, excuse me. In 2023, she got an unconditional discharge for assault 3 for one of the 2020 incidents. So it rose to that level. And I think, since we're being thorough here, that should be mentioned as well. I read throughout the supporting document, regret and remorse, but, I kind of follow where the state's attorney did, and where's the responsibility in that formula: regret, remorse, and responsibility. And we've had some explanation offered to us, and it was a scary and traumatic situation following on the heels of a scary and traumatic situation. And so, one of the documents said that the only reason for continued incarceration would be punishment. And that really stood out for me because, this is about rehabilitation and not punishment. The supporting documents also talked about Ms. Figueroa is worthy. And that's not what we're deciding here today. We're deciding suitability. And in this case, where someone has lost their lives, it needs to be fully suitable. And I do think that there's additional work that could be done. I'd like to see a 2-year period without any disciplinary issues to really bring home that the coping skills and the tools and her ability to ask for help when she needs it, because she will out in the community, that degree of emotional self-regulation that she didn't have when she committed this crime with her co-defendants will give me greater comfort.
I do think that the plan that they have put forward
Yeah.
with the resources in the community are strong. And would address duly diagnosed issues. It's a lot. The fact that Willow Clinic has already met with her once in person and then over the phone. And, we didn't talk about the fact that she really has, she has this longtime mentor that's been by her side through this whole period of incarceration. I think that's significant as well in terms of support in the community and somebody outside of her family network to help her manage to get supports if that's what's needed.
Okay. What are your reasons for denial? Obviously, poor institutional adjustment.
Nature and circumstance.
Well, yeah. In the matter of Elsie Figueroa, MA number 333277, I'll make a motion to deny parole at this time due to the nature and circumstance of the offense and poor institutional adjustment. The disciplinary reports will rehear the case in 2 years as required by statute. That's the minimum. So November of 2026, with the recommendation that you continue with positive programs and avoid any new disciplinary reports. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? This is a majority decision with board member Deborah Smith Palmieri dissenting. Do you understand, Ms. Figueroa?
Yeah.
We're gonna hear the case again in 2 years, and we'd like you to do some more work on yourself and not get any further disciplinary report tickets. Okay?
Okay. Thank
We
you.
wish you the best. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you, everyone.
This concludes the 1584 hearing for Elsie Figueroa. It is 11:04 a.m. and also the York Correctional hearing.
Let's unpack this. And I got to say, she had to get denied. It's, in her best interest, she had to get denied. And this is what I find to be pretty interesting. It's like, well, because she was 17 and because she qualifies to get released, let's give her a couple of attorneys. Let's go through the process. Let's ask for her to get released. And it doesn't make sense because, and I actually want her to get released. And I'll tell you why. But she's getting write-ups in prison left and right. We've seen these parole hearings. What she has is not normal. And she's having, it's not any type of write-up, it's assault write-ups. These are serious write-ups. So if she gets out and she's put in a halfway house, are you kidding me? She's going to get revoked in a second. She's not ready. She's probably one of the least qualified, parolees that we have seen in a very long time. I mean, from this extent, at least. I mean, it just because she's has the right to see this parole hearing, why would you lobby for it? I'm surprised even one parole off, well, she can get better programs on the outside. What? That logic, it doesn't make any sense. Let her prove that she can be successful. Give her the tools. Don't send her out there to fail. And I don't get, it's like if I'm an attorney for her, do I really want to, do I just know I want to win the case? I want to get her out. Why? So she could get out and fail? It's great. She had to get denied. It's just absolutely nuts. 2020, let's see, she got 74 total tickets. She even picked up new felonies while in prison. Sir Richard actually put in the notes, he's like, wow, somehow she got paroled and revoked because she has new felonies. But it's like, no, she got the felonies for assaulting correction officers in prison. Now, that was like 10 years ago. So you get 2009, she got one. But so she is 2022, she has assault, 2 fighting tickets, and then this year she has 2 fighting tickets. You can't, what are you doing? It just blows my mind. And the next thing I'll tell you is her approach. It's like the attorneys, how much time do the attorneys actually spend with her? Her approach at this parole hearing is just laughable. Like the DA really said it well, and I like the sound of this DA's voice. He wasn't, I felt like he's like, I would like to, he would like to see her get out, but like it's similar to the approach that I'm taking. But take accountability. You already took the plea deal for stabbing. Just say, yeah, you stabbed him. I don't remember anything, but it wasn't just, I don't remember. And it's interesting. We just covered a case for me yesterday at the time of this recording. Of the woman out of Illinois. Check the Illinois playlist if you want to see it. 44 years later, she has like her 20th parole hearing because they get a parole hearing every 22 years. She murdered her whole family. So her mother, father, 13-year-old brother, who she stabbed nearly 100 times. And she claims at her parole hearing, her whole strategy was she remembers nothing. They bring in an expert to talk about PTSD and how people forget our memory is clear. That was her strategy. And I just was like, just admit it. Just admit it. Don't call us morons. No, memory gone. And here, memory gone too. And I'll go over information with you. Just say you did it. She has so much going for her to admit what they don't talk about it. I don't know why, but she was sexually assaulted in her own bedroom 2 days before this happened. Think about that. She was then going to get pain meds from that SA assault, and she had a 13-year-old boy and a 16-year-old boy with her. It's late at night. The victim's coming home from a bar drunk because he had lost his license 6 months ago with a DUI. He also has an assault charge on his record. They claim that there was a verbal altercation. He hit or pushed the 13-year-old, or the 13-year-old pushed him, and then she got in the mix and she stabbed him a bunch of times and she left. They ran away. And then the next day they came and arrested her, and she was the only one because they were so, and you could have spun this in so many ways. She took a plea deal and got more time than we have seen in Connecticut for those who've killed multiple people. She grew up in, she has all of those factors going for her. Just admit it. Just admit what you did. She actually could have gone with some of these, PTSD, She was literally just assaulted in her own bedroom 2 nights before. But And isn't that strange? You got these two attorneys. It's like, what oh man. You don't talk to her beforehand. You don't tell her, hey, just admit it. Just admit it. Just say you're sorry. Like what? No. And it wasn't that she just wasn't admitting it, but it was almost like in her rhetoric, she was almost as if saying it might not have been me. It might have been my co-defendants. None of it would have made a difference anyways, in my opinion, because she cannot go. She knew she had a parole hearing and she got 2 bad write-ups. Putting her out in the public now would not benefit her. It would be hurting her so bad. It would really be the worst thing that you could do for her. So again, I don't know why they would fight for her case. So she has 2 more years. Thank you, Sir Richard, for doing the research on this case. Now, here's what I'll share with you. There was a letter that she wrote when she was initially locked up that we'll read to you. And then there was a study that was written by a local professor in Connecticut that will go through some of the facts. And then I also found one thing that is, so basically the study was written by Mary Patrish, a professor in sociology, in areas of interest, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I can... has her contact info. So no, I can't screen share with you, but she's like a professor that focuses on different cultures and things. And she just writes a report on how, because New Britain, Connecticut, I think is the largest Polish community in the U.S. And you had Puerto Rican communities, and there was like racial divide, et cetera, et cetera. And the interesting thing about this case is I actually had a small point in my life where I worked in New Britain, Connecticut. It was a very small window, and I remember being there. I know the city. It's a small city, so this case is a little bit more familiar to me than others because I've been to New Britain, Connecticut many times. Now let me share with you my screen. Okay, and again, thank you, Sir Richard, for finding this out of the archive. So 3 days before she murdered him, 17-year-old Elsie was sexually assaulted in her own bed by her brother's friends. She fought him. He punched her. She fought him. He slapped her. She fought him. He sexually assaulted her. The next day, she told her siblings and mother. When the attacker came over the following night, her friends and family members beat him up. Elsie broke a beer bottle over his head, and the landlords called the police, learning about the sexual assault allegations. The police sent her to the hospital. The doctor gave her a prescription, and this is the prescription she was going to pick up. So again, these aren't unsubstantiated, accusations. For her bruised ribs, okay? She stayed in her bedroom for 2 days. She emerged in the evening of January 25th, high on narcotics. She walked down to Walgreens pharmacy chain store with 2 Puerto Rican boys, ages 13 and 16. And by the way, here is just a discrepancy that is interesting because it seems that they made a mistake. This is in her appeal. And it says here that the blinding the petitioners along with 13-year-old boy and an adult male. So here in her appeal, they actually got it wrong. They say that she was going to the store with a 13-year-old boy and an adult male, and he was not an adult male. And this appeal, at first I thought that her article was flawed, but listening to the parole hearing, they said she went there with 2 boys, and she did. So it's interesting to see that they messed up on this appeal. And I don't know if that's saying anything that didn't pick it up. I think it makes a very big difference if she's walking alone late at night with a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old versus an adult male, which can be any age. She was the oldest one there. But that's besides the point. I digress. But I got to tell you, first looking at that appeal, it messed me up for this entire unpacking. I kept thinking, who got it wrong? Was it the professor? What's happening here? And it threw me for a loop. Now, walking home, and this is interesting also to refill it. So obviously, if she's refilling it 2 days later, if she just got it, that also is quite interesting. You can't even, back in those days, it was the Wild West with these pills, and So who knows? Walking home from the pharmacy, they got into a fight with some Polish guy who they punched, kicked, and stabbed. Afterwards, she went home and she later wrote, "I was so high, I just cleaned my knife and took a shower and went to sleep." This was in her jail letter that I'll show you. The stabbing of him was caught on a surveillance tape outside a housing complex. From this tape, Elsie was identified as a person stabbing him. So they had video footage. So of course, that killed any, I guess, defense. You know, at first when I saw this, I'm like, wow, if they had no video footage, taking a plea deal is just stupid. But they do have video footage. She was charged with murder. She entered an Alfred plea, and then was sentenced to 32 years, which I think is just, it's on the high spectrum for this type of situation. But I think that because this was a very big event in a very small city, it's a very small city, and that this is what happened. Now, the Superior Court of Judge Joan Alexander said at her sentencing, "The adults in your life failed you miserably. In the public construction of Elsie's biography, the narrative of murder was a tragic ending and a miserable childhood. The blame was shifted to her parents, to abusive men, and to imprudent state child protective services." They go up early in this report showing how she is one of 8 children, 3 different fathers. She had lice when they found her. She missed 40 days of school. She got in and out of foster care. So she come from a very broken home. While Elsie reclaimed the innocence with the public telling her of her childhood, Sawicki lost some with his personal story was reported. The public learned that on January 25th, 2006, a bitterly cold night, Jarek was walking home from a bar, and he was still on probation from a drunk driving charge he received 6 months earlier. In addition to the disclosure of his drinking problem, the newspapers also reported that he had spent 5 months in prison in 2003 for secondary assault with a pellet gun. The assault occurred outside blah, 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 as a comic tragedy. The public is told that his victim was found outside the club with a pellet in his nose. And he spent 5 years in prison, or maybe jail. They just, I don't know. Jarek was an immigrant who had lived in New Britain for 17 years, and yet he had not moved out of the Polish ghetto, as they call it. Remember, this is an article written about, suggesting a lack of assimilation and social mobility. He was an independent roofer, which in contrast to an unauthorized roofer or worker employed by the company, blah, 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 blah. It was 10 p.m. on Wednesday evening on January 25th, 2006, when he was attacked. According to the arrest affidavit, Figueroa said that it started when the Polish man had words with them and then pushed a 13-year-old. So according to them, the Polish man had words and pushes a 13-year-old. It's not, look at this guy as a felony. He's drunk. He's walking home. 3 children come across him, and he pushes a 13-year-old in the face. And then it ended with the 3 adolescents beating him, kicking him while he was down on the sidewalk. And then she stabbed him 4 times in the chest, once in the thigh. So 5 total times the attack did not stop until the 2 other Poles drove by, slowed down, and then the attackers fled. And what's sad about this is it doesn't seem that these people stopped or called the police or helped him. It seems they then drove off because the newspaper received the surveillance image of a man stumbling and holding his chest and falling, where the police found him lying in front of his parents' high street home. And if you can, he made it to his parents' home and died on their front home. And like they said, they actually moved back to Poland, buried him in Poland. In his life story, in liminal space, not fully integrated into the United States, he's an adult, still, he is not described as an upstanding citizen or even as a respectable U.S. citizen. His public portrayal lends itself to blaming the victim, just as there was narratives here as the victim. So it's, again, of course, her long sentence, it does seem, you know, out of so many. I do struggle with this. I'll just tell you, I do struggle with this one. I don't struggle with the decision, but that is a long sentence. We're just sick and, you know, it's just a matter. It goes to the times, right? Now let me go to that letter. I pasted it in a Word doc. And then we'll let you go. Teenage suspect killed. Da, da, da. So this was written in 2006, her letter. So she says she didn't mean to kill him. In a letter, prosecutors say she wrote from jail to a friend. She describes a scuffle with a white guy that got out of hand and the realization when she got home that she had blood on her hands. I just cleaned the knife, took a shower, and went to sleep, she wrote. She was 17, was accused of January 25th killing of a 34-year-old man, composed the letter and others in your correction institution. She's been arrested. Okay. I feel so bad for the guy and his family. People keep thinking I'm a killer or something. It's not like that for real. I never meant to do that to him, she wrote. The letters, some in Spanish, are riddled with slang, profanity, and effusive expressions of affection. I miss you. Don't forget about me. Thinking of you. I love you. It's going to be okay. The jailhouse dismissive were introduced in the court exhibits Thursday during a probable cause hearing. 16 both accused of killing. Superior Court judge, blah, blah, blah. Ruled Thursday that there is probable cause to believe that she committed a crime. The teens entered not guilty pleas and are due to report. Okay. The third suspect, a 13-year-old boy whose case is being handled by juvenile authorities. Police believe the three teens attacked and killed him near the High Lafayette Street intersection in January. Department of Correction, wrote that she and her two neighbors walked to Walgreens to buy perks to get high on what they would drug the narcotics store. And then boys, she wrote. The boys hit him back, thinking the blows came from her, from her, then hit her. So the boys hit him back. He thought that she hit him, or at least that's what they assume. So he hits her, and she takes out a pocket knife and stabs him. I didn't know I stabbed him till I got home, and I had blood on my hands, but I cleaned the knife and took a shower. I never wanted to kill him. I don't know what happened. He died of multiple stab wounds from the examiner report. One of the more serious wounds was 11 by 8 inches wide. That can't be 11 inches wide. It must be 11/8 of an inch wide and 33/4 of an inch deep. Yeah, it's 11/8 of an inch. So almost an inch wide and almost 4 inches deep. So it's like a pocket knife. And went through the victim's heart, you know. This wasn't just a stabbing. This was something with a huge amount of force put into it, said the state prosecutor. Murphy presented an array of witnesses in the court last week, including Figueroa's mother's boyfriend, who testified that Figueroa told her that she had stabbed someone in self-defense. Another acquaintance testified that he'd given a knife to her for protection. The public defender said there was no evidence that her client wrote incriminating letters. He also said that the state did not produce the knife that fit the stab wounds. So he's trying to set up some type of defense there. Of course, the prosecution wouldn't have had time to prove it, that it was the knife. So he's just trying to set some type of defense. Between the knife that the police took from the client's home and the knife that killed him, there's no showing by the state that possession of the knife and used, and we know nothing about the blade. I'm assuming that there's some evidence they put into the evidence. I think we have suspicious here, but I don't think we're probable cause. Yeah, there is definitely probable cause. But anyways, so I let me know what you think about this. Again, in my opinion, is that she could have definitely gotten less time if she went to trial. And but the bottom line is she has not done well in prison, and she has to get under control. Otherwise, she will fail on the outside. And we have seen people who do time, and we have seen people where time does them. Is that the right word? And she's got to do better. And with that, I'll let you go.
I'm just saying that I don't remember stabbing him. I could have stabbed him. I don't remember kicking him, but we could have. That's what I'm saying. It's been 19 years. I'm not
Yeah.
going against anything you're saying and anything they wrote, but it's been 19 years. But I really don't remember ever stabbing him, kicking him, any of that. I really
So
don't. I
when you
swear.
say it's been 19 years, are you implying that you may have forgotten some details?
Yeah.
What
it's
does that
just
mean
been-
when you say it's been 19 years?
I'm saying that it's just been so long that, like, I try to remember so much because I do want closure and I want to remember if I did do it, regardless of what, it's always gonna stay with me. And I'm sorry, like, I have so much guilt because he died and I was there and I had a knife and I played a part in it.